Today we're going to talk about, so again, welcome everybody, and good evening or good morning. I know some of you are in different locations right now, and we're going to discuss, talk more about the Azure AZ-104. Under AZ-104, we're going to discuss about how to administer governance and compliance. Remember, I said governance and compliance is a key feature in Microsoft Azure. It is something that would have to follow, or it's something we have to be compliant about, or it's kind of be like our day-to-day routine when you run an infrastructure. So under that, we are going to discuss the objectives, and we're going to discuss how to manage subscription using Arrowback. We're going to discuss Arrowback. I mean, some of these things are some of the things we've discussed in the previous in AZ-1 and 900, which is the fundamentals. So it's kind of like a continuation, and then trying to go in depth so that you understand the basis, and then getting in-depth knowledge about all of this. So we're going to talk about, this is like a whiteboard compliance, governance and compliance of how it works. I'm going to explain all of this to you, and then move to our next slide. We're going to discuss core architectural components within Azure itself. After that, we're going to talk about, so these are the learning objectives. And mind you, if you are taking the AZ-104 exam certification, you can see here in the exam, you have about 20 to 25% of how to manage identities, governance, subscription. It will come out in the exam. So you have to focus. When you're learning, you have to take about you get about 20 to 25% of questions coming out from this session. So take notes. So on this note, we are going to identify regions. I'm going to show you how Microsoft Azure regions are being deployed, and I will show you like a map where you will see each and every Microsoft regions. We're going to talk about how to implement Azure subscription. We are going to also discuss how to identify subscription usage and how to obtain subscription, which some of you must have gotten right now. And then we're still going to talk about how to create resource group, and then we are still going to talk about how to determine service limit quotas, and then we'll talk about how to create Azure resources hierarchy and all of that. So, I mean, we also talk about tagging from AZ-104, and we are still going to talk about it again, because remember, these things are the things that you're going to be doing at this point in time when we start, when you go in depth in Azure itself. So here, this is a Microsoft region. Like I said, a Microsoft region, if you look at it, a region comprises of it represents the collection of data center, what you have in the data center, and what you can see, what the region preserve. It's under this, you will talk about how to data are being preserved at residency within a particular region, and you have to be aware of region deployment availability whenever you are deploying Azure resources. Over here, I will show you I have a document here to show you what the region looks like. Please permit me to do that here. Microsoft Azure Data Center, let's explore. So this is it. I'm going to copy and then paste it in one of my, okay. So this is a Microsoft Azure Data Center. I'm going to explore, and I'll explain all of this, how it's being used and all. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Oh, you can see the Microsoft Azure Data Center, correct?
Yes, we can see, yes.
Okay, now, so if you look at, you can, let me share the link with you on the charts, I think, so that you guys can take a look at it and then see how it's been used. Where's my chart? It's my chart section here. Let's go to that. Oh, 1 second. Okay. Okay, I will just share it afterwards. Okay, let me just continue with the session. So if you go to this, I will explain that's data center. So if you look at this map here now, these are availability zones and different regions where Azure is. Currently, Microsoft recently launched in Lagos, Nigeria, but I will explain all of that for you, what it means. In this context, Microsoft, let me go to, so in Africa, we have 2 regions in South Africa, and we have about 2 regions, and then Microsoft recently launched what they call what was it called? A network point of presence. That's it's called network POP, right? So in the POPs, the POP means that it is a physical location for where Azure infrastructure like servers, routers, switches connects to different users globally. And the POP you see here, the POP that you're seeing here, this POP, network POP, it's are commonly used in services like Azure Front Door or Content Delivery Network. Don't worry, they use services like Express Route. Don't worry, we'll get to that part. We'll talk about it. So what you're seeing here, it's this network POP kind of like help to reduce latency, improve performance, and enable faster content delivery by serving a data closer to users in that region, which means in Lagos. So Microsoft recently launched in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, and this is it. And this is what the map looked like. So if you have the link, you can share it. It's under the slide. So yeah, just share it on the chat to continue. So this is it, so that you guys can take a look. You can use your mouse and scroll down to any region or country where you reside to be able to see how it's what they have in those regions. Now you can learn more. You can read more about what resources is stored in any kind of region you want to learn about. If they have a DRO, which is a disaster recovery, you can learn all of that from here. You can also learn about the products in that region itself. What year was it open, right? This is a data center, data residency in Chile Central, which is in South America, as you can see. So that's it about the Microsoft region. And in case you have any questions, please feel free to put in your questions and then find out more about any region you want. I mean, once you have the link, you can equally click on those links and see what they have in those regions, and then you see what the data center look like, where it's being hosted. You have a pictorial diagram of those data center, and you see, okay, they have data stored at rest, which means there's a data residency. It's in Iowa, in the United States, and it was open in 2014, and availability zone is available. They have 3 availability zones in that region. As you can see, they have Microsoft Circular Center, which is coming soon for security and other regional compliances. You can see all of this documentation from what we have here. So go over to my slide here. Let's talk about how to implement Azure subscription. I mean, sometimes when they ask you guys to go ahead and talk about Azure subscription on its own, basically is why is Azure subscription important? Basically, the Azure, as you can see from the slide here, the Azure subscription is, think of as an Azure subscription like, for example, like a container that holds all Azure services. You use like virtual machines, you database, storage. So the Azure subscription is linked to your Azure account, and it acts as a logical unit for maintaining resources. So who can create subscription? Only people with identities. Only people or identities that exist in Microsoft Entra ID. So the Microsoft Entra ID we're talking about is formally, we are talking about the Azure Active Directory, right? So in a directory being trusted by Entra ID, you can create a subscription. Why is the subscription important? The subscription is important because it is used for security boundary. Take note, it's used for security boundary. So you're using all of that so that people cannot just go inside your subscription and then deploy stuff to cost you money, and then data breach and all of that. So for security reasons, security is very important and it's key. So it also defines who can access what is inside that subscription, right? If you look up here, you can see that on this subscription, they have resources. They have different resources ranging from dev, production and test. So the dev subscription is used for development of different resources. The testing subscription is used for categorically when you are testing different resources. For example, if you are newly employed into an organization as a cloud administrator or as a cloud engineer, basically what you need to do at this point in time is you'll be given access to only test environment. Mind you, production environment is a very sensitive and delicate environment. That is where the live resources is being run. Users, customers, and different clients all over the world are using that resources. You have to be very careful when you try as much as possible or go as far as deploying stuff into the production environment. And that is why it is always important to set up security like RBAC, we're going to talk about that, which is rollback access control, identity and access management, to restrict users and department as a whole not to go into that subscription to go and deploy stuff. Let's say, for example, you are newly employed into an organization as a cloud engineer, and then you are asked to, you're given access to only test environment. The test environment, they might give you tasks to deploy stuff on test environment, to test and see what you are deploying is running safely before they can move to development subscription, which is development environment. From there, they can move to UAT, that is user access testing. UAT is like a similar environment like the production environment. So UAT is always very sensitive. They don't just give you access to those environments just like that. So you only have access to the testing environment and non-production environment. So the production environment start from the UAT and production environment. So those environments are very delicate. People, users, customers, clients, all over the world uses those environments. So you have to be very careful when you go into that kind of environment. So when you look at this now, is all of these resources inside subscription are built together. They are personally built together. So if you have, for example, if you have multiple subscriptions, you can separate cost cost for development. Let's say for development stage, the amount of money you can spend on that development stage will be around $5,000. Anything that exceeds $5,000, you exceed the quota, and it's going to send you an alert. And hey, or you are getting to 4,700, it will send an alert, or you see a red mark. I showed you how to monitor resources under Azure, and then also you can separate it by production environment. You can separate it by testing environment. The testing environment is always good for testing. Remember, it's for new joiners who join to an organization. They give you only access to those environments so that you don't just mess around with stuff. You can mess around, break or make anything within that environment. It is fine. But when it comes to the non-production environment and production environment, you have to be very careful, because deploying stuff into those environments might cost you so many things. So in short, the subscription in general that we say is subscription is like a container, is container for Azure services and for security billing. Why the Entra ID is for you need for like an identity to create that resources in it. So that's that. I'll go to my next slide here, and we'll talk
just before you
about.
move on, before you
Okay,
move on, let
please.
me explain. I know he Dominic has explained this before, but that just to throw more light into it, just see subscription as a billing boundary. So think of it like this: we all have data on our phones. If you don't have data, you will not be. You can have a phone, but if you have data, you won't be able to. You won't be able to utilize some internet services. That's basically it. So without a subscription, it's not able for you to create Azure resources. So it is like a billing boundary. It's a billing boundary. It's what you use to create. Is what you use to create for you to create resources, for you to be able to assign permissions. It's basically you do it inside subscription. That's what it's all about. Continue.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's talk about in other words, we are going to talk about. So if you look at this, if you look at the image here, you talk about different how to identify subscription usage. We talk about the free subscription, which includes the $200 credit for first 30 days. So it's free and is limited. It has limited access for 12 months. For 12 months, which means after 1 year, you won't be able to have access to this kind of subscription again. We also have the pay as you go, which means that it charges you by monthly. Every month, companies who use this are basically, I would say within small companies, small company, but when we talk about company who want to go into like large organization, small to medium, we'll talk about the cloud service provider, which is the CSP subscription. The CSP subscription is like having an agreement with possible discounts through Microsoft Cloud Solutions provider or a partner, for example, typically for small to medium businesses that can use the CSP. Then we'll talk about the enterprise subscription. The enterprise subscription, as you all know, is one agreement with discount for new licenses, right? And software assurance target at enterprise scale organization, which means that the enterprise subscription, you can use this for a particular, once in a year. They might charge by yearly. They have people who can use all of these resources at any given point in time. They can have access to different, different software licenses and all. Different organizations will have access to all of that, depending on the rights being given to them. And also, we also talk about the student subscription. If you're a student, whether you're a master's or PhD student or an undergrad student, you can use your ID and to create your student account. Microsoft includes $100 for 12 months, and mind you, it must be verified student access. They might request for your student login or your student ID to be able to grant you access. I don't know, John, if you're able to do all of this regarding people who want to create student account. So
Yeah.
So that's that about how to identify subscription usage. The next in line here.
So next in line is also about subscription. If I can just talk a little bit about this. So just think about it like this now. So some people have money, right? So remember when we talk about CapEx and OpEx, we say, okay, hey, CapEx spends small, right? OpEx, CapEx, you drop a full bunch of money ahead. OpEx, you spend small. When it comes to subscription, it's a bit similar. There's a free one. The free one is the one that I believe our friend John already has, and that's the one we share the link that suggests everybody should get so we can use to practice the things in this lab. It's free. So they basically give you €200, $200 per month to create things, to mess around. Because he's saying, take this to mess around, take this to test things on Azure. And also beyond that, there's also some resources that are free on Azure. Pay as you go. Most of these are startup companies. Let's say Helen and I decided to start our chips business, right? We want to start to send plantain chips. We will host our websites. We are just a small company. We don't want to commit a lot of money. We can do pay as you go. That means, say, based on how much you spend on the cloud at the end of the month you pay. So you basically put your ATM card. Your Naira card can even work here. Your Naira card that can buy things with dollar can work here. The next thing is the CSP. CSP is basically, hey, Helen and I has grown. We are a limited liability company now. John has joined us. Stephen has joined us. Chile Chairman has joined us. So we are a bit big, right? But we're not really that big. So what do? We want to buy subscriptions. We now go make Microsoft. Microsoft will say, hey, you guys are big. You guys are making money, but not really. You guys are just a medium company. We don't want you guys. We don't got service you guys. Go to our resellers. So they basically CSP are basically resellers. These are people that Microsoft does like intermediaries for you to get subscription. The enterprise are basically the bosses, right? The organ. These guys actually make large commitments ahead of time. These guys can remember then in the bank, the time you be committed $400,000 over 3 years or thereabouts, around $150 a month, a year, right? So these people actually pay money ahead of time. They don't drop money for their subscriptions. That's enterprise. The students, I think Dominic explained it very well. Those are basically, hey, it's for free usage. You don't need to worry. Just enjoy yourself. That's what it's all about. Sorry, Dominic, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So let's talk about, go to my next slide here. How to obtain a subscription. Remember, enterprise agreements, customers make an upfront monetary commitment and consume services throughout the year. Remember, I said that enterprise subscription are for large organizations like UBA, Zenith Bank, and the likes. Those are enterprise subscription. Those guys use, most of those companies uses enterprise subscription. And mind you, they only charge yearly. They don't. Microsoft won't, but they stop them because they must have go through a budget that would guide them to say, hey, every year you are going to run through. Let's say you are going to be about $20,000 or $30,000 in your subscription base, or $40,000 thereabouts, to be able to manage your resources every year. And you can have access to so many software licenses and the likes. So remember, I just explained all of that. Enterprise subscription has to go through an agreement with customers and make a monetary commitment and consume services throughout the year. They will use all of that for throughout the year, and Microsoft won't have to bug them. They accept when it gets to the end of the year. So the others, we talk about the resellers. The resellers are kind of like, I would say, people who want to resell services, provide like a simple, flexible way to purchase cloud services. Then we'll talk about the partners. The partners they can design and implement your Azure cloud solutions, like your CSP, like we talked about. They will help you, for example, when you meet a Microsoft partner, for example, you just build the organization, small to medium organization, and you want to move some of your resources to the cloud. You don't want to spend money buying physical resources, paying for NEPA lights bill. You don't want to spend money paying for, little things that will cost you a lot of money. You remember we talked about CapEx and OpEx. So you want to use the cloud, public cloud, where you don't have to save you cost in going to buy cement and all of those things before you build a house. By using public cloud service, you have access to a ready-made house. All you need to do, bring your furniture and then come to use your apartments, use the apartment how you want. So they will help you to design, design, and implement your Azure cloud solutions so that you can go ahead to use those subscriptions, work with the partners. So then we also have the personal and free account. Remember, here we just talked about the personal free account. Once you create a personal account, it's free. You start to use it right away. You have access to use some of limited free resources for 12 months, which is approximately 1 year, which is 1 year to be precise. And then after that, you'll be able to use, go ahead and use all of those resources personally. And if you exhaust your free 200 Naira credits, you will have to start paying if you want to use some of those resources. If you want to be able to get elevated right to do bigger things within your personal account. Let's go over to our next slide here. We'll talk about how to create resource group. First, the first thing I would like to share here is what is resource group? Resource group is like a folder, right? It's like a folder where you keep related Azure resources together. For example, if you have a web application, you might need a storage, a database, you might need a storage account, you might need a virtual machine. So you can put all the resources in one resource group. You cannot just create resource group. You cannot just create resources without having a resource group, right? It's like you having a house, for example. Once you have a house, what are the resources that are supposed to be inside that house, right? So why do we use resource group? One, organizations keep related resources together. It enables you to keep all your resources in one folder, in one box, in one house. Let's say you rent a house, for example, and you have too many rooms. You have your own apartment, for example, and you have your wardrobe. Sometimes I like to keep my things in a very safe and sound way. I have where I'll keep my drawers, which are boxers, in a particular drawer. I have where I keep my socks here, my eyeglasses. I have where I can keep them, face cap, different things. You can segment all of this. So it's like a resource group, putting all of those things in different compartments, but inside one big wardrobe, but they have different compartments, right? So another thing is it helps you in terms of management. You can apply settings, permissions, or tags to a whole resource group instead of to just one resources, right? One thing again, why resource group is important is it helps for cost tracking. You can say, hey, there's somebody who actually overspend in our resource some resources is costing us money. How do we track these resources? It's through a resource group. You'll find that from this resource group that's linked to that subscription, you can find out that, oh, this subscription under this resource group is spending, is overspending more than their quota being assigned to them and all of that. So you can track all of that. Then another thing is deletion. It helps for like deletion. If you want to delete a resource group, all the resources inside that resource group will be completely deleted. Take note, if you are deleting resources, for example, if you are deleting a resource group, everything inside that resource group will be deleted. It's like you have a house and you want to destroy that house. Everything inside that house, as you are destroying the house, the chairs will be destroyed. Take note, your television set, your laptop, your water dispenser, your sofa, your fridge, they will get destroyed no matter how, except you have to move those resources to another house, which is to another resource group, before you can destroy that house. So that's that about when we are talking about resource group. And one of the key points you need to understand is every resource in Azure must belong to a resource group. You can't just create resource without a resource group. And a resource group is inside a subscription. Remember, I told you that. Subscription is like the container for billing and security, while the resource group is like the house where you build all the put all the furniture. You can have multiple resource group in one subscription. You can have one subscription and have 20 resource group, 50 resource group, right? A simple analogy. Think, for example, how I'm going to put it. Let's say, for example, you have like you think of having an Azure subscription, for example, as a house. So the Azure subscription is your house, and the resource groups are the rooms inside that house. So what you need to do, each rooms are related, holds related items. Remember, in this room, this is your office. This room you can use for your work. This room is used for sleeping. This room is used for dining and all of that, right? So if you want to clean up any of these rooms, you can remove the whole room instead of picking items one by one. Yeah, and that's that about resource group. I don't know if you have anything to add on that also.
Not really. So I think you explained it all. So resource group as basically a house, right? If I can just break it down, make it see a resource group as basically a kitchen, right? You can have a resource group named kitchen, you can have a resource group named parlor, If you want a television, you want some sofa, those are your resources. You can create it in the parlor resource group, or basically, or just the best other way to explain it, just see like a basket, right? Unless you are yeah, like some of us that are weary, right? If you go walk into a shopping mall, you want to buy something, you probably carry a basket, right? You carry a basket there, you drop things inside that basket, even if it's 2 or 3 things, unless you're like me that I don't like keeping it, so I basically put some money in my basket. Okay, but basically that's what the resource group is, right? So basically like a basket. Every resource you create in Azure must be inside a resource group. The one thing to note, just to note again, is that if you create a VM called none, so inside one resource group, you can create another VM called none. So in another resource group, it doesn't mean that these two VMs are the same. So it doesn't mean that these two VMs are the same. It's possible for you to create a VM inside none, so and link some of the resources to another resource group, but they are two different resources. So don't think too much about it. Just see resource group as basically a way to Microsoft use it to organize their resources. It's basically used to organize resources. Every resource, I say resource, I mean like a VM, like a storage account, like a key vault. All those things must exist inside a resource group. That's it. Thank you.
All right, cool. Thank you for that, Adam. So let's talk about quotas. How to determine service limit and quotas. First and foremost, every Azure services like virtual machines, storage, database has limits on how much you can use. Take note. This limit are called quotas. And a simple example is you might be allowed to deploy 10 virtual machines in a region by default, or 200 storage accounts per subscription. Why does this limit exist? It exists because it prevents accidental overspending. Imagine where you don't set this limit does not exist. People can overspend and cost the company so much money. One of the key things we preach when in a cloud environment is how to save cost. I mean, it's like how to manage a house. That is what I'm just giving a simple analogy. For example, in how Azure cloud technology is how you can build a house, manage the house, and ensure you don't overspend while running a home. For example, if you work as a manager in a hotel, for example, you will have to see how you don't spend money on lights. Maybe I can't be paying too much money on light, because I mean, when guests come into their rooms, they'll need to put on the AC, air condition. Sometimes they might need to put on the run TV, and those things can cost money. So instead of doing all of that, how can I save costs for this hotel? As a manager, let's improvise. Let's have like a solar panel, an hybrid solar where we'll run both from running from the power company, which is PSN or NEPA, and then we'll also have access to our own lighting, our own power in case there is a power failure from the power company, and we can continue to run and save costs. We don't have to pay money. I mean, we have all of the resources. So I'm just giving you an analogy. So why does this limit exist? Is to prevent accidental overspending, to protect Azure infrastructure from overload, also to help plan resource properly. I mean, if you don't plan, if you are a cloud engineer or a cloud admin, you don't plan you don't plan before you deploy, you end up, there's what they call pitfall in what's it called, software development. Like, you will just drown, and you will end up spending too much in that infrastructure. So how do you check them? If you go to the Azure portal, from this side here, each service shows like a current usage and maximum allowed. If you look from this image here, that's what it shows. If you need more, you can create requests. You can create a request for an increase, where basically it is usually free, but requires approval. So think, for example, like a simple analogy. For example, let's say if you have like a mobile phone, and then you want to run a mobile data plan, and let's say the plan gives you 2,000 naira for 10 gigabytes per month quota. If you need more, you can ask the provider, hey, I don't want to be doing 2,000 for 10 gig. Can you give me 3,000 for 15 gig? I mean, you can do all of that. So that is that about the cloud limits and quotas.
Sorry,
Okay.
just to add to this. I'm sorry, I'm intervening a lot, but just to add to this, I really like the hotel analogy you see. Because I can give example on a lighter note. I remember the first time I was rented a hotel for. I think I was in my first year in university. I wanted to leave the AC on. How many of us rented a hotel? You wanted to leave the AC on, so when you come back, it will be chill, right? Only for you to come back. You know those hotels that you open the door, you slot in your card. So look at it as quotas. That's the way the system is basically used to limit it. But then, I say, hey, of course you can use AC, but we are giving us a quota that if you're not there, the light goes off. Every light goes off. So in terms of service limits and quotas in Azure, that's basically the limits that Microsoft puts. For example, you can see like, if you go into this now, maybe I'm just giving you an example now. Maybe in your environment now, you created so many resources. You can run into an issue whereby, hey, you're trying to create a VM and say that you don't have quota to create this VM. Yes, what do you mean? I have money to pay, can pay Azure. Why they say that I don't have quota? That means they say the quota that's been given to your subscription has finished. So all you need to do in this case is just to request another quota they will give you. So quota limits is basically Microsoft way of saying, hey, okay, you can have more. Like when you have a child now, you can give it. Of course, if your child wants to eat the whole pot of rice, he can eat. But you first of all give them small to start with. When they start with that one, if they still need more, they can request for more. That's what just quota and limits are in Azure.
Okay, thank you so much. I just dropped some of the link for Microsoft Azure Global Database and also Azure Quotas, how you can use all of them. So please feel free. And again, please, I'm begging and I'm saying that it is better for you to also ensure you have your account down, because learning all of this and don't have experience of how the Azure environment is, it's like you're just building a house without a foundation. That house might collapse. You might, all on it might be lost. Please, I'm urging everybody, because we are getting to the point where you will need all of this environment to be able to run. Yes, I know the Microsoft.learn.com give you access to some sandbox to use for free, which is good. I mean, you will get a taste and see pictorial representation of how they work. Please feel free. I'll share all of these links one after the other while working on this, so that it will help you and guide you and also give you, like, Azure is very simple. Azure is very easy to understand. It is something that when you look at the graphical or pictorial representation of how Azure explains each of its resources and services, you will see that they are very direct and straightforward. I will share some of this, and you see under Microsoft Learn, you'll see how they put each of the pictorial graphical representation, and show you step-by-step guide. Very direct, very simple, makes it life easy. So feel free, ensure you have your account down, because we are at the point where we'll start working on asking you guys questions, and also making sure that you have access to this environment. Don't be scared. They're not going to deduct money from you when you put your card to create your free account. Please, please, please take notes. And maybe with time, I think if we get some of this our monthly subscription, also I think we can also share monetary this thing to different accounts, right? So that they can use.
There used to be a free pass, Azure Pass, but they got decommissioned 15th of December last year. I've been checking to see whether they will bring up something like that, but it's not there anymore. But I'm also looking if there's a way I can get free subscription to share for people to test. But if you have any issues setting up your own subscription, you can reach out to me privately and I can connect. I think I can spend 5-10 minutes, 20 minutes for us to get it sorted. But just to talk more on what Dominic is saying, you learn Azure not just only by reading in classes like this, which is very good. You also learn it by practical. So you have to take the initiative. Okay, what is this quotas? So he's talking about this quota that Dominic is what is this resource group? That I even create a resource group. A resource group is actually free. You can create a resource group free. It doesn't cost you anything. So you can actually go get you a free subscription and try out these things. It's totally free. It doesn't cost you anything. So my advice is to try it, learn. Like even if you're not looking at, you're not getting this, I'm going to use this today or tomorrow, but just learn from it. Right. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. And again, I think maybe we can also talk about a session where we can do like a career prep talk, like a live session and then also discuss all of this so that we would get to know each and everybody where their interest is when going to the cloud. Because some people might want to become a data scientist or just to become a data analyst, how to use Power BI to analyze data and all of that. So with all of these questions, some people might like to become the DevOps engineer, the cloud engineer, or cloud set engineer, because right now there's there is a new role right now in the global market, which is called cloud security engineer, no longer cloud engineer, because Microsoft is trying to tell you that, hey, you have to ensure you have security conscious, because security is everybody priority. I mean, this is one of the things we preach every blessed day while working in the cloud environment. So let's continue to the to where we have on our slide here, how to create an Azure resources hierarchy. I mean, sometimes you ask yourself, what is Azure resource hierarchy? So it's like a way to organize all your Azure resources in a structured manner. Let's say, for example, you have, like, if you go into your farm, for example, you have different trees. In that trees, at the top, from the beginning of your farm, you have the trees can be like, in the trees you have top management groups, and then under the trees you have subscriptions, you have resource group, and then you have resources. So in those trees, you can see that you have a, what's it called? You see that you have fruits, leaves, and all of those things. Those things can equally tell you that, hey, this is in the trees. You can see some of the things that you need to do, and then work towards it. To be able to use the management group, to be able to use the subscription, to be able to use the resource group, and all of that. So if you look at this hierarchy here, the management group it sits above the subscription. This management group is kind of like the overall, right? The management group give you, they help you group multiple subscriptions together, right? The management can see that this subscription belongs to organization units. They are useful for large organization with many departments. Let's say they have account department, they have HR department, they have engineering department, they have building, they have different departments. They're called organization units. So why is this important? Why do Microsoft use hierarchical procedure or policies? So you can set rules like security policies. Remember, security is a key concern within the cloud environment. You can set rules like security policies at management level. Let's say the rules can apply to subscription and also below, and also resource below. Let's say, for example, now I want, as a group, if I have a subscription access to the management group, and I want to set up policy. I set up a policy that says, please, nobody should have access to, or nobody can connect into our company's VM if they don't follow if they use a public IP. Restrict every public IP from connecting to our company's virtual machines. What does that tell you? It means that if you are logging in from a different IP address or a public IP that is not within the company's domain, it's not compliant. It is not compliant. By so doing, it's going to block you from having access to that virtual machines, which means that you have to be inside the company's network to be able to have access to that company, to have access to that VM. What does that tell you? It helps to keep the entire environment or infrastructure in a secured manner. So another reason why this is important is cost control. You can track spending by department or by team, right? And then another thing why it's important is by compliance, which means it ensures that all resources follows the company standard. Take a simple analogy, for example, the CEO is the management group, while the department is the subscription. Then the teams, different teams, team groups now, the resource group, and the individual tasks, the resources. So that's a simple analogy of how the hierarchical Azure resource hierarchy works. So let's go. I don't know if you have any questions. Please feel free to put in your questions. Let's go over to the next slide. Here, I talk about how to, applying resource tagging. Please take notes. We talk about resource tagging. Why tagging is important. Remember, I talk about what is resource tagging. Tagging means adding labels to your resources, right? To your Azure resources, to be precise. Let's say you work for a car company, for example, and then you have the company, the production team, the production engineering team just recently produced 5,000 cars for Camry 520, 5,000 Camry 520. How do you know which one is which, right? It's the chassis number. Those chassis numbers are called tags. If you have a car, the car has a chassis number. The chassis number is your tag, what you use to identify when this car was produced, what year, which region, and which company, which region produces this particular car, right? So you can bring a different car from Japan down to Nigeria and bring the same car from US. How do you identify which one is which? It is the tag that you identify which resources is which. So the tag basically are labels that helps you to, tagging means adding labels to your Azure resources. These labels are metadata, which means they help you organize and manage resources better. You see, it is easier to identify resources. How do you apply this tag? Basically, a tag is a name value pair. For example, the name is the department, the value is finance department. Did you see that? Value pair. The value is, the name is the department and the value is finance. You can add multiple tags to resources. You can add as many tags you want to resources. Why are tags basically, why do we use tags? Remember I said it is to enable you to provide metadata for your Azure resources, logically organize your resources. It enable you to group resources, projects, environment like dev, test, production, owner. Remember, if you go to a new organization, for example, they don't just give you access to production environment. Nobody will do that because if they give you access to production environment, they believe that you don't understand the company's organogram or company's policies, in fact, how they deploy stuff. And you as an engineer, nobody say you don't know anything, and you end up, let me just deploy this to the production. No, nobody will give you access to production environment. You'll be given access to only testing environment. And with over time, when you go through the company's onboarding process, they will give you access to the non-production environment like dev, staging environment, and I mean those are non-production environments. They give you access to that, and afterwards, before they give you access to the production environment, that means you must have understood for like a 2 month, 3 months, or over 6 months, you know how the company operates, and they can give you access to their production environment. And mind you, you don't just deploy stuff. They have to also ensure that there's a policy, and you have to be compliant before deploying stuff to this environment. Another reason why it is used is its ability to check for billings and billing and cost tracking, which means that it helps you to see how much each department or project spend. And one good thing for tagging is it is good for automation. I mean, you can use tagging to tag scripts on policies to manage resources automatically. It will build those things and automatically tag it for you. Automation process is fast. Something you can build using manual way to build resources can take you 50, 20, close to 1 hour. With automation, within 5-10 minutes, you are done deploying all of those things. I mean, think of like, for example, tags are like sticky notes. For example, when you put sticky note on those items in a big store, for example, let's say you go to ShopRite or you go to Walmart and any of those, you see that they have price tag in each of those. Those are tags. So those tags identify this is the price for this particular item. It's different from a different item. If you're going to buy a laptop, the price tag on that laptop is different from the price tag you have for a water dispenser. So that is it. Let's say think of, like, for example, you write to the finance you write finance on all boxes of a particular item, right? Later, you can easily find and calculate the cost of finance-related items, which means you can easily track all the finance-related items to a particular resources, which means it makes life very easy for anybody who wants to use who want to implement tag. Tagging is very good for every organization, and nobody allow you to use tags. Let's go over to our next slide here. We'll talk about how to manage cost. How do you manage cost? What are the why are costs? Why is it essential for you to manage cost? I mean, one of the key reasons is cloud service pay as you go model, which means if you don't monitor your usage, you don't monitor your cost, you can grow your resources by overspending all of your monthly quota for the particular resources in Azure. So what does that mean? Azure literally gives you like tools and strategies to keep you spending under control, so that you don't go overboard by overspending all of your resources, all your money on the small resources, right? So a key analogy for this is each service like IAM is called, or like, sorry, let me use VM, virtual machines, storage and database, has its own price, right? A big virtual machine that runs for more than one company, or it has too many specifications, might cost differently. So cost vary, and also cost varies by location. And then let's say you're running a virtual machine on East US. East US might cost less than West Europe. Why? Because of its availability zone. One half data is at rest at that region, and the other side there's no data at rest. So so you have to choose wisely. Remember, I shared you a link of how you can check for you can do window shopping by using Azure cost related. I shared the link. So if you want me to share it again, I'll share it after this course, so that you can use to track or do like a window shopping before you buy or deploy resources in Microsoft Azure. So one of the things is when you are buying or you want to deploy stuff, inbound data into Azure is usually free, which means data that comes inside Azure is completely free. And outbound Azure data, which means data that goes out of Azure from Azure cloud to another cloud service, costs money. Example, you are streaming videos from Azure to users. Adds outbound charges, right? And then let's say, for example, you have like a prepaid service instance, for example. If you know, like you have a VM that has been running for within 1 to 3 years, you can reserve it and pay less than demanding a lower price. So that's just a key analogy on that. A simple analogy I would like to discuss here is each appliance or resources. For example, think of the electricity bill. For example, your electricity bill we are talking about, you can run it on a prepaid meter for a whole year to get a discount, and you can run it by monthly, and the person who pay by every year might get a bit of discount, like it might cost less compared to when you run it monthly. You see that the cost might be more if you run it through the end of the year. So that's that about how to manage costs. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask questions. I would also drop links on them to get like a key understanding of how you can manage costs. So on this part here, I'm going to drop it on the chat here to see. You can take your time to use this link to be able to see each of these, how to manage costs in Azure. Let's go over to our next slide here. So a total recap, we're going to do like a lab session to show you all of this. And please, if you have not created your Azure account, ensure that you find time and create it, because we are getting to the stage that we start asking questions to ensure that you're following and all of that. Let's go over to the next module here. We'll talk about Azure Policy Initiative. I mean, remember I told you I deployed policy on some of the, for an organization to restrict public access to their managed instance, web application, their web server. I also set up policy that was able to restrict storage accounts, because they have different information stored on that storage account. We don't want users to use public access to get into those storage accounts. When they do that, you are putting risks to that company, and you are putting risks to users. They are not going to hack just the company, they are going to hack individual users by stealing money. Remember, I told the last time they used Rakuno 365 to hack over 93 companies across the globe, 93 countries. 93 countries. Do you know what that is? That means that each countries have at least 3 to 5 companies. They spend over hundreds of thousands of dollars by hacking it. They just send you a link to click on it. Okay, this user is adding you to this organization unit. Meanwhile, they have already cloned those pages because someone is using public internet to log into company resources. It is risky. So that's why it is easier to set. That's why policies are being set in every organization to restrict users into getting access to all of this. So what is Azure Policy? Azure Policy lets you create, assign, and manage rules. They are called, so when you create, assign, and manage rules, they are all called policy for a particular resources. These resources ensure that these rules that you are setting ensures that policies, resources follows organizations standard, and they have to be compliant about it. So what does it do? Basically, let's move to the next slide. What does it do? It evaluates resource check, which means if they meet the rules, if they are compliant, then it will pass. Remember, just imagine if you are logging. Oh, sorry. So imagine if you are logging into company resources using the public Wi-Fi, and that resource you are trying to log in, a policy has been deployed on top of that particular resources. You want to log into a VM, for example, and the policy says, do not, if any user try to log into that computer, into that virtual machines using public Wi-Fi, please restrict that user. What will happen? If you try to use it, if you try to log in using public Wi-Fi, you will get a notification saying you cannot log in because it is non-compliant, which means it does not follow the rules. The policy is going to check if it meets these rules, and then also it's going to scan for non-compliance. It will find the resources that break the rules and say, hey, this policy does not meet compliance, does not meet the policy assigned to these resources, and by so doing it is not compliant, which means all VM must be in this particular region to be able to have access to it. If someone creates a VM in West East US and somebody wants to use West US 3 to log into that resources, it is going to restrict that user not to have access to it and all of that. So that's that. So an advantage of using certain, okay, yeah, please.
I wanted to say, can I summarize policy so people to understand? Just think about it, about governance. So, for example, now Nigeria now, the only thing that is running about is the new tax policy, saying Nigeria saying if you make money, blah blah blah, over 800,000, you pay 25%. Think about policy in Azure as about Azure policy as about governance. This is the governance of you, John. This is the rule you want to set in your Azure environment. So same way, some of this, most of us have some rules in our house now. One of the rules in my house is that you cannot walk into my house and wear a boot and walk into my parlor. You remove your boot in the front door. right? You cannot wear your shoes and walk into the kitchen. You cannot wear shoes to bed. All those things are certain rules. That's what it's all about in Azure. So the difference, the only thing is that Azure policy evaluates when they are creating those resources. So for example, now if I say a rule, like, hey, all my virtual machines must be created in Nigeria, the Nigeria region. That's the rule in my environment. That means if you want to create a VM, it's better to say, hey, I want to create a VM in Cameroon. You say, no, this organization, their policies that all their VMs must be created in Nigeria. So right, in the Nigerian region. Some companies use it for this. For example, just what to go into more what Dominic mentioned before. He mentioned tags. Say tags, this is how you know who owns what. Tags, that's who knows who owns what. So companies say, okay, we want a situation whereby before you can create any VM in our environment, you want you to say, okay, who owns that VM? So that tomorrow, if we see VM 00015 VM, how do we know which team owns it? How do we know who created it? You can use and show those policies to make sure that you are able to pinpoint who owns the VM, who created it. So that's nothing in the policy. That's what our policy is. But we just think of our policy as governance, the rules. So, for example, my own environment, my own house rules, Azure rules, our family rules might be different to how Dominic governs his rule. We've had people that say, hey, our rule is that every day, every Sunday, you must go to church. Some houses are not like that. It's all about governance. That's what it's all about. Just think of it like this. The governance you have in your Azure environment, it's all about policy. So if you look at the examples, they say, hey, require tag and its value. So you basically say, if you want to create any resource, you must put a particular tag and you must put a value. You must say, hey, every rule must have what? Only certain SKUs. When I say SKUs, SKU. Anytime you hear SKU, SKUs in Azure, it's about sizes. So, for example, now me and Helen went on a date. Helen wants to go and chop basmati rice of 200,000, but my SKU is 50,000. How do I restrict it to make sure that Helen doesn't go that? I will set a policy I will carry out to where to make sure that those people don't sell basmati rice of 200,000. Rather, we'll go for the one of 50,000. That's what policy is all about. You set your standard. In my environment, it's true. It's true. You can create a VM of 1 billion SKUs. There are VMs that are so expensive that you one single run, your whole $200 is gone, right? But how do I make sure that people don't create it in my environment? I make sure by setting policy that restrict them from creating it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks. So let's go over to our next slide here. So this is a simple analogy. This diagram here that you're seeing here is to create and manage policy to enforce compliance. And you're going to first define and create the policy. Which scope are you going to, do you want to assign the policy to? Do you want to assign it to management group? Do you want to assign it to subscription? Or do you want to assign it to resources here? When you set it, you assess the compliance and then deploy. So what does this diagram tell you? If you want to create a policy for, let's say you want to create a policy for management group, it means that anybody under this management group will be affected, which means the entire organization. The management group talks about like the CEO. The CEO say nobody close until it is 5 o'clock. That's the policy of the company. Nobody goes home until it is 5 o'clock. Policy is being set by this management group, which means that if you leave home, if you leave the office by 4 p.m. when it's not 5 yet, you are going against the policy, and security might say, hey, please go back. You cannot go out until it is 5. Who said so? The CEO, which is the owner of the company. This is the management group. Then when you talk about, when you set the policy to be within the subscription level now, which means subscription level can be people under the subscription. Let's say people from HR departments now set a policy says nobody goes home until it is 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. It does not affect people from other departments, but people under this resource group, it affects them, which means anybody from engineering team can leave the office before, once it's 4, they can even leave. They won't wait till 6. The HR department says, the under subscription says, do not go home until it is 6. I mean, this is simple analogy. Or you can say by resources now, the CEO said, or one of the managers said, hey, individual now, you are talking about resources. You can say, Stephen, you are not going to leave the office until it is 6:30 p.m. Please do not leave. It does not apply to people in different departments. It does not apply to the entire organization. It's only impact just what one person. That is what the resource is talking about. So if you look at it, this is a very simple analogy. It's very simple to understand. So I will drop this link here, and so I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Don't just think I'll be talking and you guys are there to listen without doing all of these things. Please, the reason why I'm doing all of these things is for you to go back, have access to these things, and then ask me questions, because myself and also sorry, Tugo is down, so it will be decided he won't be able to join. So let's move to next week. So he will also be available to also ask, listen to your questions and then answer them as well. So that I'll just share the link on how to create policies. If you look at that link, it is very easy. There's a pictorial graphical representation for you to be able to understand step-by-step guide. Azure, like I said, Azure is very simple. All you need is your attention, it needs your time to be able to venture into it, and then I bet you will enjoy it. So let's talk about, so on this, let's go to our next slide here. We'll talk about how to assign policy, and then how to create and assign initiatives, and then how we talk about how to check for compliance, if it's compliance or not, and then we'll also talk about remediation tasks, and then to remove policy initiative. So that's that. So the next slide talks about how to secure your Azure resources with role-based access control. Role-based access control, you're talking about RBAC. When you hear RBAC, it is role-based access control. So on this part here, if you go to take the Microsoft, if you are preparing to take the Microsoft Azure AZ-104, which is Azure Administrator, bear in mind that 20 to 25% of questions comes out from this part, role-based access control. We are going to learn how to manage built-in Azure roles. We are going to also understanding how to assign roles in different scope, and you're also going to understand how to interpret accesses. So let's go over to next slide here. Let's talk about RBAC. Let's talk about RBAC here. So what is RBAC? Remember, I just told you, RBAC means role-based access control. These are roles. These roles controls access to Azure resources like virtual machines, storage accounts, databases. So example of roles they're talking about full ownership. Who controls the overall resources within that organization? Who can contribute? That is, who can create, having contributor access, which means who can create and manage resources but not assign roles. Also reader access, which means who can view resources but cannot change them, cannot modify them, cannot change them. So a simple analogy is like having a scope applied to a subscription level. Under subscription level, you have resource group. Under or resource level. Let's talk about if you look at this diagram here, it differentiates what you need to understand about RBAC and Entra ID. And a simple analogy is a key difference here. I will just make it to understand what you have on my screen here is RBAC talks about who can do what with Azure resources, right? While the Entra ID roles you're talking about is who can access it, who have the identity to access it. That is, who can do what with identity and access management, who can have access to these resources and use them. So that's the two key difference with both that you need to understand and all of that. I don't know, a simple analogy here is think of a company, a building company, for example, a company building, for example. Let's say the Azure RBAC decide who can enter the rooms and use the equipment, right? That is RBAC. And the Azure Entra ID decide who can manage employees badge and security system. Let's say before you enter the company, security will have to check if you have the right identification to enter that organization before you enter the premises. That is Entra ID. And once you enter that building, now are you working as a staff of that organization, or you are just a visitor to just only to be able to see how they operate, but you cannot use resources in that organization? That's a simple analogy about role-based access control. I don't know if you have it. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I wanted to drop this because I've seen this confuse people. So Azure RBAC rules, Entra ID rules, the difference between the two. Think of it like this, right? Azure RBAC, if you have an Azure RBAC rule, that means you can create a resource. What's a resource? A VM. You can create a VNet, you can create a storage account, you can create all those. That's if you have Azure RBAC rules. That means whether you are owner, you are contributor, or that means you have Azure RBAC rules. Entra ID rules means that you can manage things in Entra ID. That means, remember our example last week, you can create a user. You can create a user. You can reset a user password, right? Remember I showed you guys user access administrator. For you to be able to do that, you need an Entra ID rules. To go back to example that Dominic gave, look at it, for example, now we have an organization. We have HR, right? We have HR, we have engineering. So, and we have the management, right? No, let me not use HR. Let me use sales, for example. We have sales, we have engineering. The sales team, their job is to go and make sales, right? Sell the products. Engineering, their job is to produce. Normally, an engineer should not have key access card to go into sales, right? It's only when maybe there is some unique activity that will make him to get access into sales. But sales will also not have access to go and make things in engineering. But a manager can have access to both. So just know that when it comes to Entra ID and Entra ID rules and Azure RBAC rules, they are actually different. Why I'm reporting this is because it's only in Azure that this is different. In other clouds, in GCP, in AWS, is not different. And I've seen it confuse people a lot. There's a clear distinction between Entra ID and Entra ID and Entra ID rules and Azure RBAC rules. Please continue.
Okay. Next slide. So that is it about it. So now I just shared this link on the chat where it talks about how to create a role definition, how to define a role. If you go over to this link here that I created, let me show you, you see like a step-by-step guide on how to, guide here on how to use create roles in Azure. If you click on this link here, you will see it. I don't want to waste much of your time because this is how to create a role. Remember, I told you when you log into the portal, all you need to do, you click on all services, and then you click on all services, and then you select which of the services you want to create. So these are step-by-step guide on how to go about it. I mean, it is very straight, and then it will show you. It will list all of the roles for you to make you understand how to use role definition. That's why it is always easy to go. It is easier to always have your account ready and then use those links to be as a point of guide to be able to guide you through all of that. Let me go over to my next slide here. So on this slide here, this is a pictorial graphical representation of how to create a role assignment. And I will share the link here on the portal, on the chat as well, so that how to add and remove roles, for example. And I'm going to ask you guys questions right now because that's why I'm dropping all of these links so that you have access to them to be able to use them as well. So this is so this one also talks about how you can apply RBAC authentication within Azure. So this is like a lab. Maybe after this session, we might do some lab session to be able to see how. So let's talk about, let's go over to our next slide, and then we're going to talk about, there are 2 lab sessions here in our next slide here. I will share those lab sessions. Please, I will ask you guys questions about this lab. and then we'll treat it in our next session, because I want you all to be in sync without adding too many tasks or taking much of your time doing the talking without you seeing the those environment, how it works and all of that. So these are 2 lab sessions. This is a pictorial graphical representation. So the link I shared you has both of these links, so that you take your time to go through all of them and then use them. So this is the one I shared was lab 1, and then this is lab 2 as well.
Okay, just I think Leo asked a question. He said, please guide with RBAC and Entra ID for authorization and authentication. Okay, so the best way to understand Leo, right? Right, best way to understand it, right? Everything has to do with authentication. So everything has to do with authentication. So remember the difference between authentication and authorization. Authentication means you have access to enter. Authorization means what can you do? All right. So Entra ID provides authentication into Azure environment. So the whole idea, so for you to be able to create a VM, is you have to be authenticated into Entra. Entra is the head or is the identity platform that gates to Azure. So whether you are working on Entra ID, whether you are creating users, whether you are setting users, or whether you are creating VMs, you must first of all work towards get to Entra. That's what I want to cover. Then the next thing is about what can you do? Authorization. Authorization, that means Entra is involved in both authentication for both Entra, whether you're doing things in Entra ID or whether you're creating resources. Authorization, it means now what can you do? So that thing you can do with, if you have Entra ID roles only, permissions only, you will not be able to create resource because you don't have permission to create the resource. You are just a seer, right? You just come to view. Even if you don't have permission to read, Entra will not even allow you to come inside. You'll not even get to the door at all. So the difference between the two is that you, depending on what you want, the event you basically comes in the authorization part. What you're able to do depends on what you're authorized to do. That's simple. If you're authorized to make changes on Entra, yes, you can make changes on Entra. If you're authorized to make changes in Azure AD, you can make changes in Azure AD. I can show you a small demo just to wrap things up. 1 minute, please.
Okay. Let me stop sharing.
Yeah. So let me share my screen. Okay. Please tell me you can see my screen. So I just went to, for example, portal.azure.com now. Let's show you what I can see. So it's asking me to log in. So if I use an account, for example, Nonso.udechu at Outlook, Nonso.udechu at Gmail, let me use an account that doesn't even have account, any Azure subscription. Let me use it for example now. Let's see what's going to happen. If I can still remember this password. So apologies, it's been a while. Let me see. I'm trying to log in now. It's still about authentication. Man.
The reason for this is to protect your accounts. See why two-factor is very essential.
I can't remember. Just give me guys 1 minute. I know our time is fast spent today. Let me see where I can get all this information quickly. Okay, it's supposed to send me 2 auths. I've not seen anything in my mail yet. Where is it? Microsoft. Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, I'm set. So this is me logging into an Azure environment now. So you can see I'm able to get into Entra, but do I have access? So if I go to subscriptions now, I don't have access. So just to go back to what we are saying, there's basically a subscription. So I'm able to get into Entra. If I go to my default directory now, let me go to my default directory now. There's a default directory, this cloudservice.com. That means I've used a cloud service. I remember last week, we said for you to be able to have a directory, Entra, you have to use a cloud service. I have subscribed to a cloud service with this identity new tech service at outlook.com, but I have never bought a subscription. That means if I try to create a resource now, say for example, now if I try to create a VM now, I'm not able to create it. It's basically say, hey, get your free trial, right? But say I can manage your Entra ID. Remember, I can manage Entra ID, but I cannot create resources. So if I come to create resources now, it's showing me my Entra. Oh, free. You are using Azure AD for free. I can go to users. I can't create a new user because I'm a global admin. I can create a new user, test user, test user. I can do all these things, but remember, I'm not able to create because of what? I don't have the permission. I don't have a permission. I can review and create. Of course, it needs a password, but that's just it. I can create a user. I'm not able, I can't create a subscription because I don't have a user. That means if I want to go to this directory now, just look at the names, for example. If I want to go to this directory now, let me just go to this directory, for example, and check now. If I go into this directory now, you can see this directory has a subscription attached to it. There's a subscription attached to it. Well, why can't this user get to this, get this directory, get this subscription? Because what? This user does not have permission. This user does not have permission to get to this place. Get to permission place. If I go further back into what just the things that Dominic mentioned, he mentioned things around subscription, billing boundary, cost and everything. So for example, now look at me now. It's telling me, hey, so you have $20 of credit remaining. Wow, it means I can't go and create resources, large resources in this case, because if I create large resources, I'm going to run into issues because I don't have the money, right? If I'm sharing this with someone now, what will I do? I might probably have to come to resources. I might probably have to create policies to limit people from creating unnecessary resources because I don't want them to create unnecessary resources. So this is how the things are management. So the whole idea of cloud engineering, for example, it's about managing Azure. It's about managing things you have in Azure. It's about how do you protect your resources in Azure. So for example, now Dominic mentioned say you can join. If you join today, we're not going to give you access to production. Of course, you're not going to give they don't trust you yet and they don't know their capacity. But some organizations will give you that capacity. That means you have to be careful of what you do. And also it means that the cloud administrator giving you the access will actually set some policies to stop you from making mistakes, to limit the mistakes you can make. So imagine now I have some freshers out of school and I give them $100,000 Azure environment and I didn't put restrictions. Most of them might want to go and create a NVIDIA GPU, right? Then most of them can go and create, let me use for example now, if I go for, let me try for example, let me just use an app service plan now. I want to create an app service plan. Let me just create an app service plan. I want to create an app service plan now, for example. Let me just use this. AKS, just use any tests. No, so right, just use something random now. I want to go to the path that it requires the run stack. I'll just go with a Java 21. Just don't really care. Anyone, it's fine. But I want to show you the plans. Just look at the plans now and see the cost. What it costs me to host this app service plan now. It's taking time to load. Okay, so yeah. So if I leave it open for people to create, that means so people can actually go and create isolated. Isolated will cost you 0.399 an hour, right? But there are free test ones, right? So if there are free test ones, there are some that cost you as much as $2. There are some that cost you as much as for 44 USD. So that means about 1 month. For 1 month, it may cost you 322. But there are some that are free. So imagine that imagine that I employed a bunch of graduates and I didn't put restriction on my environment and they want to create resources for them to test. They say, this environment, just go and learn. And they are instead of picking this, they are picking this. It's on you, the administrator, to create policies to limit this. It's part of your job. It's on you to also do what we call FinOps. FinOps is about cost. So you have to worry about if your organization has a budget of $10,000 for an application for a year, for a month, it's your job to make sure that everything aligns into that cost. So you have to think about cost management. It's also what the costs are all about. So it's not always about the shiny new things, but also about how you protect your environment. So I think this is where I'm going to stop for today. We are going to stop for today. But what I'm going to do, please don't run. Next week, right? Next week, we're going to have another class. What we're going to do, we're going to test our knowledge. It's going to be a yes and no. It's just a random yes and no question. If you like this, yes. If you like this, no. So just to assess where we are, it's going to be on the screen. It's not going to be, we're not going to expect anybody to click on it, to click. So we just want to assess the knowledge we have so far. So it would not be like look as if we are just dumping and dumping and dumping on you people. So if you object to this, you can send us a message in the chat, say, hey, don't do this. But most importantly, we would like you to be there next week because we want this guy, I want the class to continue. Our class starts by 6 p.m. Nigerian time. Please join 6 p.m. so that we don't use the first 20 minutes or 15 minutes waiting for people to come, right? It will really make sense if you can join on time so we can put it on time and we can enjoy the rest of our evening. Thank you so much. That's all from me. Dominic, anything more from you?
I think that's all from my end here. I will call this class a wrap and then end the session. Please, before you go, I have a very vital information to share at the end of this recording session. So please stay tuned, and I will say thank you so much for your time, and please ensure to stay safe, and I'll speak to you, see you next week. So please stay tuned. Thank you. So, okay.